Okay guys, today I'm doing an introduction to Artmage, the new lore deck in the Duelist Advanced core set. Much like Branded, which received great support for a very long time and stayed relevant for years, this will almost certainly be the same because it is a lore deck. Because a bunch of these are secret rares, you probably should buy these before the next wave of support, because it's already kind of decent on release and will probably become pretty good for a while. If you're new to my channel, I tend to stay away from combos and spreadsheets, which don't actually teach you anything about Yu-Gi-Oh! And you can find anywhere on YouTube, and instead I focus more on deck theory and game plan. What is the point of the deck? What are the concepts you have to understand in order to accomplish the game plan, even if you haven't memorized a bunch of different combos from a spreadsheet? So in this video, I'll try to do a few different things. I will go over the basic gimmicks of this deck that the game plan revolves around. I will do a brief overview just of the most important cards in the set so you can follow along with the video, and then I will show you a bunch of different lines for how to sequence your plays in order to accomplish the game plan. So let's get started with Medius the Pure, which is basically Fallen of Albaz for Artmage. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add to your hand or special summon one Power Patron monster from your deck. If this card is in your graveyard, you can shuffle one monster from your hand or face-up field into the deck, and if you do, special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field, and both effects are once per turn. So this guy and this guy are the heart and soul of the deck in combination, and everything else is basically a support card to make these two cards work properly or gain resources from your support cards. So Medius the Pure, who special summons or adds to hand, but I don't think you'd ever want to do that. Special summons a Power Patron monster from your deck, currently only has one target, which is Artmage Power Patron. So you cannot special summon from the extra deck except fusion monsters, that's just while he's face up on the field, and you can only use the following effects once per turn. During the main phase quick effect, you can fusion summon one Artmage fusion monster or one Nerva the Power Patron of Creation from your extra deck using this card you control and monsters from your hand or field. If this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, which by the way will happen if he's used as material, you can add an Artmage spell or trap from your deck to your hand with a different name from the cards in your graveyard. So this is exceptional because just because you have access to Medius the Pure and bring him out, and then fusion summon with him, because he's going to the graveyard by his own fusion summon, this gives you the next Artmage card, and that really does the waterfall of everything else that the deck is trying to accomplish. So this is why Medius the Pure and Artmage Power Patron are the heart and soul of the deck together. Okay, I'll briefly now go over the other cards. So Assault, when this card is activated, can add Medius the Pure from your deck to your hand. You don't need to read the rest. This is basically just more copies of Medius, and that's why I've chosen to add it. The field spell is an insane card, Artmage Academic Arcane Arts Acropolis. So during your main phase, you can normal summon one Medius the Pure in addition to your normal summoner set, and that's why I don't really mind having Artmage Vandalism Assault with, 3 more copies of Medius, because you often will be using that extra normal summon effect. So this says you can discard a spell or trap and declare an Artmage monster card name that is not among the monsters you control and you have not previously searched for with the field spell. Add that card to your hand. But if you add that card from your deck to your hand, you cannot special summon from the rest of the turn, except for Artmage monsters, Medius the Pure, or you actually can still summon anything you want from the extra deck. So this card is not once per turn, and you mainly just have to remember that you can't do anything you want in terms of the restriction. Like you could go Closed Heaven into Requiem because you can summon whatever you want from the extra deck, but you could not Requiem summon a Fiendsmith card because that is not from the extra deck, which means it has to be an Artmage or Medius the Pure. So pretty weird restriction, but anyhow, this card is phenomenal. Then we have Artmage Varnish Alteration, which places the field spell from your deck or graveyard face up in your field zone, or if you already control the field spell, then you can add any Artmage card from your deck to your hand instead, except itself. So this is an extremely strong card, because if you want the field spell, this obviously gives you the field spell, but because you can search the field spell so easily, this becomes basically a Rota, but actually better than a Rota because it's an Artmage card. It's not just, like an Artmage monster. So this is an extremely strong card as well. Then we have the support cards. There are 3 of them. So Graflair is probably the best one. All of these guys, all the support, Graflair, the Finmel, and the Laterra, if you control an Artmage card, you can special summon all of them, and then they all do something different. So if you control an Artmage card, and you special summon this guy, you can set an Artmage spell from your deck, which is what I think makes him probably the best one. This guy can target a spell or trap your opponent controls and destroy it, but it's a quick effect if you have 3 more different monster types on the field, so that's the typical gimmick. Then Finmel, if you control an Artmage card, you can special summon her, but in her case, then you can draw 1 card, so she, replaces herself. During the main phase, if you have 3 or more different monster types on your field, quick effect, you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls. Also, until the end of this turn, their attacks become halved. So it's like a droplet basically, but they are allowed to respond to it. Then we have Laterra. So you can special summon her if you control an Artmage card, and then in her case, you can add an Artmage card from your graveyard to your hand. That's actually pretty important for a lot of the lines. During your opponent's main phase quick effect, you can special summon 1 Artmage monster from your hand or graveyard except herself, and then return this from the field to the hand. So if she's the only one that doesn't require you to have 3 different types on field in order to do her special effect. And I think everything else you're going to see in the combos. And then I'll explain what the strengths and weaknesses of the deck are. I just want to briefly mention that I think you could play a Fiendsmith version here. There is a new card in this archetype called Theorealize, which I do not think is searchable. If it is, someone please let me know in the comments below. Or maybe it'll be searchable in the future. But this says, send Medius the Pure from your deck to the graveyard, look at the top card of your opponent's deck, and place it on the top or bottom of the deck. You can banish this card from your graveyard, target a face-up monster you control, and declare 1 monster type and attribute. The monster becomes that type and attribute until the end of your opponent's turn. So if you dump Medius the Pure from your deck to the graveyard, Medius the Pure can automatically just bring himself out as long as you shuffle back a monster from your hand or face-up field. So even without using a normal summon, or if you have used your normal summon on something else, then Medius the Pure is basically a free summon because this dumps it. And at any point in your combo, you can banish this from the graveyard and turn something into a light fiend to go into Requiem and do your Fiendsmith stuff before you are under the field spell lock. So I feel like there probably is some way to play Fiendsmith in this deck, but because you can't search this, I don't think you would probably play 3 of this because it is kind of a starter that just requires that you have any blank monster in your hand for it to work as a starter and also give you Fiendsmith stuff. So that does seem pretty strong, but you can't search it, so I kind of automatically like the branded version more, because as I'll show you in a moment, the branded opening and Aluber are full Artmage combo. Okay, so let's get started with the most basic, low to the ground, simple combo you can do in this deck that does not even go through all the cards. So we're going to start with Assault, which is basically just our Medius searcher. So we're going to Assault and search for Medius. That's all we care about this. And I guess this technically is an Artmage card, which means that if we've drawn any of the other support cards, which are kind of bricks, they're automatically unbricked because you now control an Artmage card. So I feel like this should be at 3 because Medius is so important. You gain an extra normal on the Medius from the field spell, and then if you've drawn your other support cards, they're not bricks anymore, and they actually can give you your full combo. Like the Grifflair can now special summon himself and search for any Artmage card. So I feel like you probably do play 3 of these. Anyhow, here, the Assault is going to search for Medius the Pure. We can normal summon Medius the Pure, which will special summon the Power Patron from our deck. And now we can use the Power Patron's effect to fuse into Diectorus. So remember, this guy is an Omni-Negate for card or effects that are activated on the field, but only if we control 3 different monster types. So this isn't actually useful to us right now. And we really just want to search off the Power Patron for the moment, because he was sent to the graveyard. Now we can search for the field spell. So we can activate the field spell, and as long as we have any spell or trap this card, we can discard that to search for an Artmage that we have not previously searched for. So now we're going to search for Grifflair, because remember, he sets any Artmage from our deck. And because we control an Artmage card, we control 3 right now, we can summon the Grifflair for free, and then he can set whatever. So here I'm going to set the Alteration, and this card, like I said, you can place the field spell, but normally you want to sequence this afterwards, because only if you control the field spell can you add any Artmage card from your deck to your hand instead. So now when we activate Alteration, we can search for the trap card. So now I'll go over this one. This, unfortunately, you can only use 1 effect in a turn. You can't use both effects in the same turn, otherwise this would be pretty crazy. So the on-field effect is you can special summon an Artmage monster or Medius the Pure from your deck. And by the way, that means that if you bring out Medius the Pure from your deck, because he's a trigger effect to bring out the Power Patron, and the Power Patron's fusion effect is also a quick effect, just from this card, you can get your Medius the Pure into Power Patron into Fusion Summon. But anyhow, so you special summon an Artmage monster or Medius the Pure from your deck. Also, for the rest of this turn, the activation of your cards and effects that include an effect that fusion summons a fusion monster cannot be negated. So the stuff that you just brought out that's going to fusion summon can't be negated. Also, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when a monster is fusion summoned this way. I'll talk more about this in a moment, because this is one of the few places where your big boss monster is really easy to resolve. So then you can banish this card from your graveyard, target an Artmage monster you control, return it to the hand or extra deck, and if you do, destroy 1 card your opponent controls, and that's a non-targeting pop. So I think this card is extremely important for two reasons. Firstly, as you'll see in later combos, this deck goes very wide in the monster zone, and you need some other type of layer so you don't just auto lose to stuff like Dark Ruler or Droplet or whatever. You need to have a different type of layer, and the grave effect of having a non-target pop is an excellent use of layers in a deck that doesn't have a ton of layers. The other thing that's very important is that the big boss monster, if this is interrupted, it's going to feel very, very bad if you've used a bunch of resources to go into this and then you don't even get to blow up their field. So if you were to have resolved the Artmage Pact Awakening, then on the window of the fusion summon of this guy, you could sequence your effects so that you can activate some other Artmage effect and change that Artmage monster effect to destroy all cards your opponent controls, and there's nothing they can do about it. I feel like those two reasons mean that you actually have to play this card at 1 no matter what. So anyhow, we add this from our deck to our hand off the alteration, and now we can, in this case, I'm just playing SP to show you that there isn't much useful that you can make under the lock from the field spell, and so I'm just going into a Little Knight to punish something like a Nibiru. So here I'm going to discard the trap card, which is a layer in the grave, so we could leave it there if we want, and search for something else. So now I'm going to search for the Latera, because we didn't search for her yet, we just searched for the Graflair. And the Latera can now special summon herself because we control an Artmage, and add back an Artmage from our graveyard to our hand. So you don't have to add back Awakening. You can add back anything at all that you want, but I'm adding back Awakening because I'm just going to show you that you could actually pass like this. So if your opponent were to have held Nib and tried to Nib you, in a situation like this, you can Little Knight banish itself and the Latera, and you would still have them on the field. And then in your opponent's turn, you could bring out your Medius the Pure, which could then bring out the Power Patron, and then fuse into whatever. And so then you can continue playing from there. So that's like the most basic, most horrible, low ceiling combo that this deck can accomplish here. And then also remember that because the this Power Patron guy was sent to the graveyard, you can search for whatever you want. And also another thing is that if you use the Power Patron to fuse into the other guy, then you will also be able to use this guy's trigger effect when he's sent to the graveyard to change that effect into the one that blows up the field. So there are different things that you can do with this if you're playing like a more chill version of the deck. And also, of course, you have all three different types on field because he's Dragon, Warrior, Fairy, and this one is a Spellcaster. So however you sequence it, you're going to have the three different types on the field so that you're going to be able to negate their card or effect on the field with the Ictorus. So that's the most basic bad version. Now I will show you the Theorealize Fiendsmith stuff. So here you activate Theorealize and you dump Medius the Pure, and then you get to check the top of their deck, and you can put the card on the top or the bottom of the deck. Now that we have the Medius the Pure in the graveyard, we can put back our blank monster to bring himself out, but he's banished when he leaves the field. And then because he was summoned, we can special the Power Patron from our deck. And now the Power Patron can use the effect to fuse into Ictorus, and we can then use the Power Patron effect to search for whatever Artmage card. Now here I'm going to show you, because I believe there's a bug in Omega right now. You can just banish Theorealize from your graveyard, declare Light Fiend, turn this into a Light Fiend, and then this would become Requiem and do your full Fiendsmith stuff from there. This is working on Edo Pro and it's not working on Omega, so I assume it's just a bug, and you actually can declare Light Fiend on this. So anyhow, imagine that this is a Requiem and it goes into whatever Fiendsmith stuff we want. But now we have the Artmage field spell, and we can discard a blank spell or trap to search for the Graflair. Because we control an Artmage, we can just bring the Graflair out for free, and then that places whatever Artmage we want. And this is always going to be the alteration, because once we control the field spell, this doesn't have to search the field spell, it searches anything we want. It doesn't even have to be a monster. So now we can search for the trap if we want the trap in rotation, because we can just keep using the field spell to discard spells and traps. So you don't actually need a whole bunch of spells or traps in hand as fodder for this, because you can just search for the trap, which becomes a layer, and so it's like a free interruption that then you can use to summon your, or search for your Latera. So now you could summon the Latera, and if you want, you can add back the Pact again, and then again, you can just use the field spell to discard the Pact a third time and search for the Finmel to get your Dark Ruler type effect. But you're not going to do that if you need the Pact specifically to be on field and you don't have any other things you want to discard. So if you did have something that you wanted to discard, like a Book of Eclipse or whatever other blank, then you could search for the Finmel and you'd also have her on field. And then your opponent plays. Here you can Pact Medius for Power Patron. And the Power Patron, in this case, has enough materials that it could go into the Nerva, the Power Patron of Creation. And because the Power Patron, the Artmage Power Patron was sent to the graveyard, because he just fusion summoned, and he can trigger his effect to search for an Artmage card, if you want, you can go Chainlink 2 and turn this into the blow up all cards your opponent controls. And because the Power Pact gives you the Meltdown type effect, your opponent can't really do anything about this, and so they're just going to have their field blown up. So it's not necessarily the most efficient way to use your resources, but it is the most efficient way to guarantee that this effect is going to resolve. So now let me show you some of the more cool combos with the branded stuff that I feel like is probably just better for a couple of reasons that I'll show you in a moment. So let's say that you open branded opening. You could go, for example, the typical draw phase, discard whatever, Aluber, search for your branded fusion, which is at 1, and it doesn't really matter that it's at 1, although I guess technically it would be more consistent if it was at 3, but I don't think it matters that much. So now when you go main phase, you can use the branded fusion, dump Medius the Pure and Fallen of Albaz to go into your Lubellion the Searing Dragon. Lubellion the Searing Dragon can discard any blank, and then you can put back the Fallen of Albaz in itself to go into a Mirror Jade. You don't actually have to make Mirror Jade like this. You can make a bunch of other stuff that I'll show you in a second. But the point of this is to show you that either hard drawing the Aluber or drawing the branded opening is going to give you a Mirror Jade with a blank monster on field, which is important because remember that Medius can bring himself out from the graveyard by shuffling back a blank monster from your field or hand. So you could choose if you want to put back the Aluber into your deck, or if you want to leave that monster on field and put back something in your hand instead. But either way, now that you've summoned the Medius, he can bring out the Power Patron from your deck, and the Power Patron can now go into, for example, your Deictorus, and then the Medius is banished when he leaves the field. So now that you've done that, the Power Patron can search for an Artmage card, so you can get the field spell, and the field spell can now discard a blank spell or trap to again go through your Grifflair first. I don't know if there are cases where you would not want to go through this first, unless you had been playing for a while and you had some other specific play in mind, because of course you're going to summon the Grifflair and set the alteration, which searches any card because you already have the field spell. So now you can use the alteration and search for the trap, which remember you always want in rotation, then discard the trap to get the Litera, and now the Litera can bring herself out and add back whatever. So in this case, we can add back the trap again, and we can discard the trap again to search for the Finmel, and then summon the Finmel here. And she also draws a card. So the issue with this type of board, and the reason that I think that this trap card is so important, is your opponent could just activate Dark Ruler or Droplet, and then you no longer have this Dark Ruler type effect. You would no longer have this Omni Negate for card or effect on field. You would no longer have the Quick Effect Spell or Trap Pop, and you would no longer have the Mirror Jade effect. Although technically, nothing can stop you paying the cost for this, so you actually could dump, like an Albion the Branded Dragon and then get a search off of this card, so you still would be able to get some value off that, but in terms of your interruptions, you don't actually have much if you've committed everything into the full board. So this going wide, I think, is an advantage when your opponent cannot deal with it, because it's really strong to go wide with a whole bunch of different types of effects. So you have a whole toolbox on your field. But then if your opponent has a way to deal with you having gone wide, you really need to have some other types of interactions. So this is a bare minimum effect to have engraved to get that non-targeting pop. And I think you probably need an engine that, or some like hand traps or something that give you different types of interactions or layers too. So then the last thing I'm going to show you is a combination of some cards here. So here, this was a game that I was playing against just, unranked ladder online when I was testing out the deck. And so I look at my hand and I summon Aluber, the Jester of Despia, because remember, Branded Fusion is full combo with everything in the deck. And ignore for the fact that I have Medius the Pure and Artmage Power Patron here. These cards actually, this card I don't really feel is good to draw because you can't special summon him for free. But he's good to draw, but if you don't have your extra normal off the field spell, then I would probably go for this instead. So anyhow, I search for the Branded Fusion. Now I activate Branded Fusion, and in this case, because I already have Fusion Deployment, which can bring out my Medius, I don't need to Branded Fusion and go for Lubellion into Mirror Jade just to get Medius in the grave. So instead, I'm going to summon Rinbrum, because this is Fallen of Albaz and a Beast Warrior or Wing Beast, and Fulos is a Wing Beast. So if you were playing Fulos anyhow, then you always have access to Rinbrum. This is the guy that says, When a Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link monster's effect is activated, quick effect, you can negate that effect, then you can return one monster from the field to the hand, crazy effect. And then during your opponent's turn, while this card is in your graveyard, quick effect, you can target one Fallen Valbaz in your graveyard, special summon either that monster or this card, and banish the other. So two extremely strong effects that are very, very relevant. And your Albaz is still in the graveyard when you summon him, and you don't shuffle back the Fallen Valbaz for something else. So now I can use Fusion Deployment, and the reason I'm showing it to you this way is because Fusion Deployment can be a starter on its own, because you could just bring out the Medius the Pure, use the effect to go into Power Patron, fuse into the Deictorus, then the Power Patron will float into the field spell, and then you can activate field spell and go do whatever you want from there. But if you draw the Fusion Deployment in combination with any other way to play, it becomes whatever you want. Your board is whatever you want. So you don't have to use Branded Fusion to give you access to Medius if you already have access to Medius. So I think this is probably, I don't want to say it has to be a mandatory 3 of in the branded version, but I feel like this seems like a very, very solid way to access the Medius part of your deck and make your stuff not redundant, you know? So all your cards do different things, and then they bridge into each other if you only draw one thing. So now the field spell can pitch whatever blank spell or trap, search for the Grifflair, we bring out the Grifflair, we get our alteration, which gives us the trap card, and in this case the opponent chose the Scoop, but this could be whatever we want, where we can just pitch the trap, we could get our Littera, or we could get our Finmelt, and we also, remember, can if we ever want to clear stuff off of our board or whatever, we can summon this in defense position, so you can't actually use this for going for OTKs just by tripping 3 monsters with different types. So the Aluber is a fairy, the Grifflair is a dragon, this is a fairy, this is a winged beast. We probably wouldn't want to get rid of these two, so we would put another body on field, and then we could go into that if we wanted. So there are lots of different options from here, and that's the basic idea. So right now, I think that this is a decent overview of what the deck can do. There are some other cards that I haven't really covered, like Succession. This says during the main phase, you can fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field, including an Artmage monster. And if a card is in the field zone, that monster gains 500 attack. So obviously, because this is a spell card and it can use monsters from field or hand, then you could go Guardian Chimera, and the Guardian Chimera would resolve properly. During your main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, target 3 Artmage cards with different names in your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck. Now, unfortunately, this doesn't give us a draw as well, which would make this a lot better of a card, but this seems like it could be very, very important for your resource economy, because there could be cases where you've gone through your support cards like the Grifflair, Finmel, and Littera if you only play one of each, and you don't really have a good way to get them back, maybe because you've lost the Littera out of rotation, so you can't just, you know, summon this and add back one from grave to hand. So I feel like some type of way to recur your resources could be useful, and if you wanted to play Guardian Chimera, you could play this, but this is a brick, basically, so I don't think that you have to play it. And the last thing that I'll say is, because this discards a spell or trap, you might want to be slightly heavier on spell trap count in your deck, just to make sure that this card is never a brick, and this always works properly. So yeah, that's basically the introduction for now. If you have any suggestions, please let me know in the description. Any other ideas or ways on how to play the deck, I'd be very interested in knowing that. If you want to join the Discord, the link will be in the description. Feel free to join and @ me in one of the channels, and I will respond to your message. So thanks for watching.